Hey, what's poppin'? It's Mello Dee back at you with another video, and today we'll be going over scales. Reason we'll be going over scales is for beginning producers because it's something that I feel like they need to know. It's one of the foundations of creating melodies and things of that nature, and one of the biggest things that I see is beginning producers having off-key melodies. So this is something that's very important for producers of all genres. So with that being said, let's get into it. A scale is a series of notes. It determines what key you're in. That is important because what key you're in determines what notes will sound pleasing to the ear within the context of what you're playing. So today I'll be teaching you the major and minor scales. I'll also be teaching you how to use those within FL Studio specifically if you have it, so you don't have to memorize it if you don't want to, and also a few other things to help you as far as beginner producers. Let's get started. So to get started, we need to lay the groundwork. We're going to talk about intervals first. Intervals are measurements across the keyboard. That's it. It measures the distance between one note to the next note. So when I say intervals, just think measurements. Just think that. Let's go over the measurements and how they work. So we'll start with the C note. You have a C. It's C4. The first type of interval that we're going to go over is a half step or a semitone. What that is when you're on the keyboard, the distance from any key that you press is directly the next key next to it in either direction. So if I go one semitone up, we go from C to C sharp because that's one note above it. If we want to go one semitone or half step down, we go from C to B. That's what it is. So it's basically the note directly next to the note that you're on. Now for the next interval or measurement, we have the whole step or the tone. It can be called either one, but that is when you go two semitones away from the note that you start at in either direction, up or down the keyboard. So if we start at C, a step would be one semitone, two semitones. So from C, D would be a whole step or a tone. If we do it the other way, from C, and then we go one semitone down, two semitones down. A sharp would be a tone down or a whole step down. These are the most basic measurements or intervals when it comes to measuring the distance on the keyboard. Now, one other thing I want to go over very quickly is octave. That's basically another type of interval or measurement across a keyboard. And what that is, there's basically 12 notes on the keyboard. Look at this side of the keyboard as I go. So we're going to start from C. Let's count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see, we get to that B right there. That's basically the end of the octave. But when we get to this, it's a whole nother octave up. That's how come you have C4 and C5. There are 12 notes in an octave, and when you go from one C, like C4, to C5, that's a whole octave up because it's the same note at a different tone, basically in a different octave. Or if you go down to C3, it's the same note as C, but it's in a lower octave. It's 12 pitches down. So boom, you got that. Let's move on to the major scale. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go over the formula for the major scale. Now, as far as the major scale, just to be brief, that's better for brighter, happier music, also more sensual music like R&B, even more motivational music like Lose Yourself by Eminem or some of that Gatorade stuff like, you know, the Gladiator stuff, all that. So the formula, being that we went over all the intervals and stuff like that, this is going to be easy work. So let's do it. We're going to start from C5. Let's get up to C5. Boom. So the formula for the scale is you start at whatever root you want. We're going to build a C major scale. So we're going to start with C. And the way that the formula works is root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That's how it works. So let's go over that. Let's do it in slow motion. So boom, we start at the root. Then after that, we do another whole step. So we go from root to whole. So we go up 2 semitones or a whole step. That's 1 semitone, 2 semitone, boom. So we're at D. Then after that, we go up another whole step. That's 1 semitone, 2 semitone, boom. Then after that, we go half. So that means we only go 1 semitone. Then after that, we go another whole. So we go from this 1 semitone, 2 semitone right there. Then we go another whole. You get the picture at this point. Then we go another whole. Then guess what? Half. We land at the end. C. So let's listen to that. That is a C major scale. Now, that is how the formula works for any major scale. So you can build a major scale on any other key that you choose to be the root. And again, we only did 1 octave because those notes in that 1 octave are going to be the same in every other octave. So with that being said, let's try another one. One of the black keys. We'll do F sharp. So let's do that. We start at the root, whole, another whole, half, another whole, another whole, another whole. Guess where we land? Half. Let's move on to the minor scale. This scale is better for trap music, it's better for darker stuff. It can still be used in R&B and other genres and stuff like that, depending on what chord progressions you use. So when it comes to the minor scale, it has a different formula. We're gonna start from C again. The formula for a minor scale is root, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So let's do that. We're gonna start at the root, C. Whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Let's play that. Same thing, you could pick any other key, it's gonna be the same formula. We will do A sharp. So root, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Let's play that. So that is an A sharp minor scale. Now, before we continue, one thing that I do want you to know is basically what a relative scale is. And basically that means a minor scale and a major scale that share the same notes. They all have the same notes. Now the formulas are different, but this is how you know. If we look at this scale right here, the C major scale, you remember it. All the white keys. If we go to A and do A minor, all the same notes. They're all the white keys. The way that you find out what the relative scale is to whatever scale you're in, if you're in a major scale and you want to figure out the relative minor scale, just think minor equal minus. So you go down 3 semitones from the root note of whatever scale you're on. So if we're in C major, you go from 1 semitone, 2 semitone, 3 semitone. So it'll be A. But if you're in minor and you want to figure out the major scale, you can go from A and then go up 3 semitones. Same thing. So from A, 1, 2, 3. So boom. That's relevant because if you're making samples or trying to figure out what key something is in, you know, you can know the relative scale, and also that'll help you label your samples and stuff like that. Let's continue. So let's talk about helpers in FL Studio. So if you want a certain scale to be on the grid to where you know what notes to click, there are 2 ways to go about it. So let's pretend this is as blank as can be. It's a blank canvas. What you want to do is go to the upper left-hand corner. You want to go to helpers. You want to go to scale highlighting. It's going to say a bunch of scales. I got it set to default right now, but we're going to click major right now. And boom, it's going to throw us into a major scale. So let's go and go back to helpers. We're going to click a note. How about F sharp? So boom. You see all the grayed out parts? You got, it's the lighter gray. If you see it, the lighter gray, and that'll go through, you know, all the piano rolls and stuff like that. I click another piano roll, you'll see it still on the other piano roll. So that's a good way to do it. And when you do that, that'll pretty much put you in a position to where you're automatically in the scale every time you click a note. Now, what you don't want to do is click the darker spots because those aren't in the scale. If you want a minor scale, you'll do the same exact thing. You'll go to helpers, you'll go to scale highlighting, and you will click minor natural Aeolian. Boom. It's going to put the notes up there. It's going to be the lighter notes. Those are going to be the ones that you want to click. So I'm going to show you another way to do it. It's the sampler method. So you go to an empty sampler, click the upper left-hand arrow, click stamp, and select the scale, either major or minor natural Aeolian. Click whatever key you want the scale to be in. It's going to stamp all the notes. Go at least 8 patterns out. Lay a note down on this top of the 9th pattern. Then press and hold Control L to stretch all the notes out. Then press Control C, then Control V to paste. Then you want to hold Control and press the up arrow to move those up an octave, and then you want to slide them to the left. You want to do the same thing and go down an octave with Control down. Now, when you go into any VST, you'll see the scale a lot bolder on that pattern. All right, so I'm basically going to illustrate, you know, what it is to be off key and things like that, because a lot of people, for some reason, some people don't have the ear for it. So I'm going to show you basically how this helps you. So I have a melody. If you look at all the light gray spots, you can see them all over here. You can see them all over the place, not the darker gray spots, but the light gray spots. Those are on key. All of these notes are on key. Let's listen to the melody I created. Now, this melody right here at the bottom is made of chords, and this is the top melody, you know, right here. So what I'm going to do, you see how cool it sounds. I'm going to take some of the notes and put them off key. Now, you see with that little bit of tweaking right there, you see how off it sounds, how cringe it sounds. It doesn't sound right. As a beginning producer, if you get feedback from somebody and they tell you that your stuff is off key, you might have to look into doing scales. But even if not, I feel like scales are like the foundation, you know, and you should just have that down. That's something you should just have in there. There are going to be videos in the future that I make about chord progressions and things like that, but I felt like it was necessary, especially for beginners, that I give them that music theory knowledge and also give them that Fruity Loops knowledge so that you can basically create melodies that are always on key and not really have to worry about being too off key or anything like that. It's going to be important moving forward as a foundation when I start doing all types of melody tutorials and things like that. Another thing that I'd like you to know is that the scale almost dictates the mood and the possibilities of the mood, you know, when you're creating the music, because as far as the notes and the chords you're able to hit, they'll be determined by the scale for the most part until you get into advanced music theory, when you start doing modal interchange and stuff like that that you don't need to worry about now, where you start pulling chords and things like that from different scales and using notes that aren't within the scale that may sound pleasing to the ear and things like that. So that's very advanced, but for you to get to that, you know, you need to know some of this stuff first. So let me know what you want to see in the comments. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this. But outside of that, I'll see you another day, somehow, some way. My man, I'm out.